What's up, visionary? It's your boy, Clee. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. This is a community where dreamers, that's you, become doers, and that means you learn how to better execute on your dreams, and then you become the type of person who changes the world for the better. That's what we do here on this show. Now, you might think you know who you are and your personality, and I did too. But I had a wake-up call, guys, and it has honestly changed my life forever. But whenever I ask someone to put their personality into words, they often struggle to externally articulate what they're trying to say. Or they use very vague cliches like outgoing, introverted, or adventurous. And understandably so, because this is a very hard thing to convey. But those cliches don't truly dial into who you are at the core. Those are just external symptoms of your internal compass. But what if I told you there is a system that will reveal who you are to yourself in a way that will change your life forever? I'm so serious. Would you be interested in learning that? I thought so. You're listening to the Build Your Vision podcast, a podcast series about maneuvering the ups and downs of building a life that you're proud of, captured in real time. A community where dreamers become doers and doers become world changers. Let's go. We're in a series right now called Spiritual Intelligence, aka your sixth sense. And last week we talked about your self-awareness and your spiritual gifts. This week we are continuing in your self-awareness, but from a different angle of your unique personality. Because you can't effectively change anything outside of you until you know the inside of you. No two people are identical, and it's because of the unique personality God has given you so that you can accomplish the assignment He has planned for your life. That's exactly why I brought Tom Miner onto the show today. Tom is a certified enneagram coach, and we're going to talk about the enneagram personality system. Now, you might be wondering, what in the world is an enneagram? You're about to find out.
I'm so glad we get to do this. What I really love about the Enneagram is that it Myers-Briggs, and I've done every personality test and assessment that there is. I love learning about people and myself and the things that make me tick and make me who I am. Myers-Briggs and all these other ones tend to show you the really fun aspects of who you are, but the Enneagram really digs down beneath the surface. It pulls back all these layers of the onion, and it shows you like who you are at your core. And it shows you the tendencies that maybe might not be so great, that actually really aren't so great,
right,
that you can work on. Enneagram, I mean, this is an ancient personality typing system. It's been around for a really long time. It suggests that there's 9 personality types in the world. And it really has evolved over the last 50 years with modern psychology. It's kind of been blended. So what I love most about it is it's perfect for personal development, understanding things about yourself. When I was first introduced to Enneagram, there were things that I didn't even realize about myself until I really started to look into it. I felt certain ways. I never really knew how to describe it until I got into the Enneagram, and so many things made sense. So it's perfect for that personal development. It's wonderful for professional development. Team building, which is what I really love to use it for. Mm-hmm. It's just got this wide application. And it's immediately accessible and has so many benefits for so many people. But it really, I think of all the personality assessments there are, it dials in really, really closely. And it really shows you areas that you can start to improve to become more self-aware.
Yeah. I love that you pointed out that it dives into the good and the bad. And it primarily actually emphasizes the bad more than the good, which I think is kind of countercultural with, these assessments, oh, well, you're this and that, you're great, you're special, you're unique. And it's just like, here's what is possibly dangerous about you. And the funny thing is, when you see those things, you're able to identify with them faster for some reason. With the negative rather than with the positive. You're like, right. Ooh, yeah, that's
it might sting a little, right?
Yeah.
You got to be brave and bold to look into this stuff and to really look at yourself and say, wait a second. Do I do that? Oh, I do. Yikes. But when you take those steps to really look at all the layers of who you are, not just the great things about, oh, you're awesome, it really helps you become a better person. It helps you become more self-aware, and it helps you to show up as your best possible self, grounded in really good things. So it is so beneficial to so many people for a number of reasons. And just one thing, because I know this podcast is so focused on, just making yourself the best you can be, successful. Cornell University did a recent research study. They took almost 100 CEOs. Their bottom line was $100 million to $5 billion. And what they found in this is that the highest predictor of success is self-awareness. That was across the board. So the capacity that you have to understand, to self-regulate, and to monitor what's happening inside your inner world, the good things and the bad things, understanding when you might be in a situation of stress and how you might respond, knowing that helps you navigate everything in your life, literally everything in your life. Mm-hmm. So you become innately just a better person because you're really taking time to develop yourself and really try to find out who you are, the good and the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why I like how it applies to visionaries so much, who's the target audience of this show. It's like, because there's so many times where you want to get to a certain destination, yet you don't realize the self-sabotage that you can be doing in the process. One, by not being aware, or two, not just realizing how to maneuver other people's moral flaws or whatever it is, like you being able to not only play offense, but also play defense completely changes the game.
It does.
How you're able to navigate relationships, workplaces, spaces.
It is. And Cleavon and I work together, and we've been both exploring the enneagram even more. So we start to realize the coworkers that we have and the enneagram types that they are, and it helps us navigate negotiations, conversations, ideas, concepts. When you know what somebody's core is and how they might react to a crazy, wild idea that you might have, like I often do, you can start to really tailor that negotiation or that language so that you try to get it closer to where they might be able to say yes to you.
Absolutely.
Or to where you're kind of playing in their field, where they're coming from, so you know what you have to do. And I think that's one of the beauties of the Enneagram is you're not trying to manipulate anyone. You're just trying to figure out how you work, how they work, and how you can meet in the middle and kind of blend your two personalities to get forward and to take that vision and then to go make it a reality.
And in the past episode, we talked about spiritual intelligence being your sixth sense, and the level of self-awareness you have, it plays out on a spiritual level. Lots of times, we ask or pray for God to help us do this or help us do that, or restrain us with this or provide us patience for that.
Right.
I love how even Jesus, when he was praying to the Father in the Garden of Gethsemane, where, he knew he was about to get crucified. And he said, Father, if there's any other way, take this cup from me. But thy will be done, Yeah. And it was like, and we talked about this in another episode too, where we said, how do I know God's will? When it comes to God's will, a lot of times we lay down all our things as visionaries at the altar. I just want to do what God wants me to do, blah, blah, blah. Part of it is knowing who God created you to be.
Yes.
Even Jesus, the Son of God, knew what he wanted.
That's powerful.
He was like, God, if there's any other way,
please. Yeah, right.
But at the end, your will be done. But he had a desire and he wasn't afraid to share it with the Father. And I just think, man, this level of self-awareness that we can have where we actually know what we want, we know why we want it, and then we can address the Father and God's will with that lens rather than being clouded by maybe someone else's judgments or someone else, what, your pastor said or whatever like this, who's a completely different person than you are.
That is so well said. I think that summed it up perfectly. So I'm just going to start with the Enneagram. This is an anxious personality typing system. It suggests that there are 9 personality types in the world. And essentially we're all 9 types at some point. We draw on the characteristics from each, but there's one type in particular that we really identify with the most. It's like a gravitational pull. Nobody is a pure type. There is no such thing as a pure 5 or a pure 3. And what I love about the Enneagram too is it doesn't box people in, because ultimately personalities and people are complicated. So as I go over these 9 types, I just want you to know that I'm not trying to box Cleavon into a type 5. I'm not trying to box myself into a type 3. I'm not trying to box you into anything, but I just kind of want to give you an idea of what this is. There's traits of each Enneagram type. There's core motivations. And as you listen to this, if you feel like you're all of these, you probably are, because literally you are, but there's one that might really speak to you. So we'll see which one you gravitate towards. And just remember too, the human personality is fluid, and the Enneagram shows that. So I think that that's something that is really good. And the goal of this is to get you to a healthy state of mind where you're grounded in self-awareness, you're in touch with yourself, with how you're feeling, acting, and thinking. And you know why. You know your why. And you can regulate your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. And you can just adapt in the moment to be the most your best possible self, making the most considered and wise choices. So we'll start with type 1. These are the improvers. These guys are very meticulous. They're hardworking. They're really reliable, responsible. They're just moral, ethical people. And they're motivated by this need to improve themselves, others, and the world. They show up every day for continual improvement. And if you're working with a 1 on a team, just leverage that talent that they have, that innate ability for quickly spotting mistakes and improving things. A 1 can improve anything. They spot mistakes miles away and they know how to make them better. The one thing about 1s is sometimes they can tend to be procrastinators. And this is not because they're a procrastinator in general. It's just because they want to do everything really well and perfectly, and they fear that they might not. Mm-hmm. So a good example of a type 1 is Gandhi. There's a lot of debate on Steve Jobs. I think he's probably a type 1. And Julie Andrews would probably be another one. Type 2, these are the helpers. They are warm, caring, and supportive people. They are motivated by this need to be needed and loved by others. And Cleavon and I know several 2s. I mean, we see this show up every single time. 2s, by the way, they're the most interpersonal type on the Enneagram. They do best in positions with a lot of customer and people action. These are like the faces of your company. Like you want them out front because they have this ability, when they're healthy, to connect with people in a really great way. They just live for relationships. The thing about 2s is they're most sensitive to criticism. So oftentimes I'll tell managers or I'll tell, leaders, if you're doing a review with a 2, obviously you have to give them some feedback, but you've got to be aware that they're going to take everything you say to heart. Yeah. So you probably need to be extremely gentle. Like you're not being gentle enough with a 2. And the other thing I would just say, don't put them in the back office. They got to be up front. They want to be liked. They want to be appreciated. They live for people interaction. Mr. Rogers is a great example of a 2. Mother Teresa, Maya Angelou. Those are just classic 2s. The achievers, type 3. These are also known as the performers sometimes too. Yeah. These are the most success-oriented, image-conscious of all the personality types. They're highly wired for productivity. They're motivated by this need to be successful and avoid failure at all costs. Now, a healthy 3 will realize that failure is just a part of life and you can learn from it. But in general, failure is still something that they really try to avoid at all costs. They want to win. They like clear performance targets, a lot of clear instruction, simple, focused, fast, and they want to be admired and respected. Not necessarily liked all the time. They would rather be admired for what they do, for what they've done, than to be liked, but they also like to be liked as well. Mm. These guys, they're inspiring role models. They're leaders. They're politicians, but sometimes they can lose their sense of identity in their pursuit to impress others. If you're an unhealthy 3, if you find yourself constantly people pleasing or just trying to put on the mask, sometimes they'll go into a room and they have this ability to just pick up on the environment, pick up on what's going on and become the person that room needs, that the people need. They've just got this ability to put on these different masks. And so sometimes they're trying to impress others, they lose who they are. One thing to watch out for, make sure that they're not running over others to the goal line. Sometimes they can lose sight of those around them when they're so focused on a goal, when they're so focused on a mission. But they're really great people. She's the classic 3 example, Oprah. Bill Clinton was also a type 3. And someone like a Tony Robbins, that's a type 3 right there.
Michael Jordan might come to mind too. I don't know if he was healthy though.
Okay. Michael Jordan could. Yeah. That'd be, wow. Yeah. That could be really cool. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor.
Type 4, these are the individualists. These guys, man, they are creative. They're sensitive. They're a little temperamental at times, but they're motivated to be extremely unique and special in their own way. They're in a lot of creative fields. These are musicians, artists, just that vibe that comes with that. That's a 4.
Yeah.
You want to let them express that depth, that creativity, that distinct style that they have. They are extremely deep people. If you know someone who is especially deep emotionally, really creative, maybe a little bit out there in the best possible way, that's a 4. Yeah, that's a classic 4.
I'm thinking of someone right now.
And see, I'm telling you, as we're going through this list, you're going to be thinking of people saying, oh, yeah, that's them. That's them. Yeah. And that's what I love about this. The thing about 4s, though, you cannot let them live in that realm of feeling or emotions all the time. You're going to have to help them kind of get into this space of critical thinking so that they can better balance those gifts and abilities, because critical thinking sometimes isn't as easy for them as it is just being so deep in their emotions. Taylor Swift is probably a good idea of a 4 example. Type 5, your podcast host is a type 5, Cleavon.
Yeah, I am.
He is the investigator. These folks are analytical. They're emotionally disattached often, and they're really private. If a 5 shares something with you personally from their life, pay attention, because they're not doing that very often, and it's really significant when they do. 5s are motivated by this need to gain knowledge. They want to conserve energy and resources, and they avoid relying on others. But they really, really want to acquire as much knowledge as possible. And it's funny because when I first met Cleavon, I was like, this guy is a 5. There is no question that he's a 5, because it's just who you are. But we also had some questions. Maybe he was a 1 because he's got a lot of characteristics of the 1. So this is a great example of you're all 9 types. You just have a predominant type that is you. And in Cleavon's case, for a while there, we called him a 15 because he was a perfect blend of a 1 and 5. But he really, truly is a 5.
Yeah, just because my mom is a bona fide 1. So I feel like some of that role rubbed off on me.
Into you.
Into me, yeah.
With 5s, man, if you give them a project and let them get it done, just let them do it however and wherever they choose. The biggest thing for 5s that I've noticed, and Cleavon and I were literally just talking about this, they want autonomy. Let them work from home, give them the project, let them do their thing, because they will get it done. They're really great. Great examples of 5s: Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Albert Einstein, Cleavon. These are just people who are 5s, and they're really cool. Type 6, this is known as the loyalist. The 6, there's more 6s in the world than any other type, most likely.
Yeah.
This is just some studies that they've done, and there's a lot of 6s out there. They're committed, they're practical, they're extremely loyal. The thing about 6s is they tend to be worst case scenario thinkers. And Cleavon and I know some 6s. Yeah. They need to feel safe. They've got a lot of just vague anxiety rolling around in their brain. And sometimes it doesn't even matter, but it does to them. Mm-hmm. When you're talking with a 6, you need to listen patiently, know that they're going to ask a lot of questions about literally everything. And just keep in mind, they want to think through every worst case scenario every single time. The day could be going incredibly, but they're thinking about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen if?
Right. So which can be helpful at some points.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you, it is It's very beneficial to have a 6 on your team, because if you have 3s and 7s and 8s, they are going to be driving the organization like crazy. They're going to be pushing forward, no stops. 6s come in and they're very beneficial, and they're actually crucial because they think through the things that the 3s and the 7s and the 8s aren't thinking. And we're going to get to 7 and 8 eventually here too. They're just some of the most assertive on the Enneagram, but the 6s really tap the brakes, and that can be really beneficial. And seriously, they can be very reliable. They can be valuable players on a team, but they can also be a little indecisive sometimes and unsure. A great example of a 6 would be a David Letterman, Tom Hanks, even Bear Grylls. I think he was a classic 6. So that's the loyalist. Type 7, which
Bear
I just
Grylls.
Bear Grylls.
He's over here hanging off a chopper off the side of a cliff. And he's you didn't think about all the worst case scenarios of this one, Bear? I guess he's healthy.
But he's healthy.
Right.
He's healthy. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to show you how to get out of that worst case scenario.
Yeah.
See? So he's taking
it,
that anxiety within him and trying to show you, here's what you do if you're in this worst case scenario, or here's what you do if you're stranded in the wilderness.
Oh, that's true. That is kind of like his whole show. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
It's all about risk prevention. Don't get yourself in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
Type 7, the enthusiasts. I love these people. They're literally like joy bombs. They're fun. They're spontaneous. They're adventurous people. They just want to be happy all the time. They're planning fun experiences all the time, but they do this because they want to avoid difficult feelings. Okay, so here's the Enneagram. You're fun, you're spontaneous, but you're doing this to avoid difficult feelings. That's what I love about the Enneagram.
Yeah.
That's the core of why you're doing all this, because you're trying to avoid something. The best thing with a 7, though, man, give them a long leash, give them an expansive job description. They are tremendous visionaries. They truly are. The thing about them, though, sometimes they can be a little distractible. And sometimes you don't want to let an optimistic 7 downplay problems or failures or bad feelings. That's what they tend to do. And sometimes, as difficult as it is for a 7, and for a lot of us, no matter what your number is, sometimes you need to sit in those feelings and learn from those feelings. Great example of a 7, Robin Williams, Jack Black, Stephen Colbert. I think they're all classic 7s. And Robin Williams, as we learn more about his life and what he went through, the challenges that he went through, on the outside, he was just this funny guy. He was fun and spontaneous, and you would have never guessed anything was going on. But really, I think he is probably a quintessential 7 for sure.
Yeah.
Type 8, these are the challengers. And Cleavon and I know some challengers too, some type 8s. Let me just tell you, I love type 8s. These guys are assertive, they're commanding, they're just intense people. They're motivated by this need to be strong and to assert control over the environment because they don't want to appear weak in any way. And they're always going to test authority too. An unhealthy 8s can be that guy. But they want to know who's in charge, and more preferably, they want to be the one in charge. And if they're not, they're going to go up against that. You got to tell them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Even when it's bad, they can handle it. They want to be straightforward, and they really can use their strength to improve the lives of others. And they often do. We see a lot of type 8s in leadership positions. And if you've got a healthy type 8 in a leadership position, leading an organization, a team, they are looking out for your best interest. But sometimes they can also be confrontational, even in simple matters. In a little tiff here and there, what can feel like nothing to them can be incredibly intense for somebody else. So it's really important for especially type 8s to take that passion that they have, that assertive, commanding presence, and get it in a healthy place so that they can help others. And they really can. Martin Luther King Jr. is a great example of a type 8. I think even Dr. Phil is a type 8 too. He's going to help you, but he's also going to tell you as it is.
Yeah. Primarily, a lot of the type 8s I know in my life before, other than work, are actually, I feel like there might be some type of maybe sexism that's involved with like some of these numbers where we try to apply based on gender roles or whatever.
Right.
Most of the people I know who are 8s in my life are women.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I feel bad for women type
Right.
H sometimes because
Right.
they could get a bad rap.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they're aggressive and blah, blah, blah. But if it was a
Right.
guy, he would be praised. So,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
yeah.
He'd be leading
so-
the organization. Everybody would be just like, I'm with that guy, right?
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
That's a really great observation because that happens all the time, especially for women who are type 8s.
yeah.
And for those who are listening, if you are a type 8, if you are a woman and you've been in a position like that, man, use that power. You have been gifted in such an incredible way to lead. And man, people are just intimidated by you. Just remember that.
Absolutely. They're move makers. And I see a lot of them in social justice. And we saw what just happened with Judge Ketanji
Right.
Brown Jackson. And I think she might be a type 8. I don't know, but
She could be.
she could be.
She
I wouldn't be
definitely could
surprised
be.
if she was.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. So if type 8s are the most assertive and aggressive on the Enneagram, type 9s, the peacemakers, are just the opposite of that. Type 9s, these guys, they are pleasant. They're accommodating. They're laid back. They are the most go with the flow people ever. Great example here. Hey, where do you want to go to dinner? Oh, I don't know. Where do you want to go? Sometimes type 9, they just have a hard time making up their mind because they're just trying to go with the flow as often as they can. And they're motivated by this need to just keep the peace and avoid conflict at all costs. We all have that friend who just avoids conflict at all costs. Everybody could be going crazy. The whole world could be going wrong. And they're there trying to glue everything back together.
Mm-hmm.
These are type 9s. With 9s, you just want to establish some clear expectations. You want to encourage them to express their own feelings rather than mirroring yours, because that's what they tend to do. And oftentimes when I'm with 9s, I'll ask them, hey, what are you thinking and feeling? Not others, but like, how are you actually feeling? What do you really want to do in this instance? They've got a lot of wisdom. They've got a lot of insight. Sometimes they just want to go with the flow to avoid conflict when they actually have some great wisdom to share. So with 9s, I'm like, don't sell yourself short. You've got incredible skills and wisdom to share. You just don't always believe that you do, or you can, because you're just trying to go with the flow. Abe Lincoln's probably a great example. Walt Disney is an incredible example of a type 9, and probably Queen Elizabeth as well. So those are the 9 types of the Enneagram in this personality. And if you've been listening right now, like, man, that sounds like me, that sounds like me, that sounds like me. This self-discovery to wisdom and self-awareness and emotional wisdom are powerful steps.
So like for you personally in your life, like how has your knowledge of the Enneagram helped you with self-awareness particularly?
It has literally changed the way I look at the world and other people. For me as a 3, I know that sometimes I need to slow down. Sometimes a day that's not as productive is okay. As a healthy 3, I want to become the healthiest person that I can be. So that means looking out for others, helping others. But I think your question is really important, because really, as I've just dived into the Enneagram, I've been really focused on just trying to apply it in so many different ways. Like I was saying earlier, if I have a conversation with someone and I happen to know that you're a type 5, I want to go to you with a message that's really important, but tailored to you specifically and who you are. I'm not going to change anything about it. I'm just going to try to get to you directly as I can and share with you in the best possible way. So for me, Enneagram has changed the way I look at personal relationships, work relationships. It's changed the way I view myself. There's things that I used to really wonder about myself that I just didn't know. And now I do. And diving into this, exploring this has been a really great way to just discover myself, to become more familiar with who I am, and to help others too become more self-aware and know who they are.
Man, big shout out to Tom for coming on the show today. I hope you learned something and you're going to apply this to your life. The book that both Tom and I used to really dive into this topic and really apply it to our lives is called The Road Back to You. It's by Ian Morgan Cron. I really highly suggest that you read that book if you really want to grasp this concept and integrate it into your life. I'll have the link for that book in the show notes as well if you want to click there. If you do want to take an Enneagram test, I'll also have a link for that. You know I was going to hook you up with the links. I'm also going to put all this information in the newsletter that comes out this week. All right, guys, remember, keep building your vision every day. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Executive production by Cleavon Davis. Music production by Cleavon Davis and Christian Hernandez. The Build Your Vision podcast is a product of Build Your Vision, LLC.